This episode of Empty Betters is brought to you by DraftKings. Playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score six. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to episode 242 of Empty Betters. I've got my co-host over on the other side of the screen, Mr. Nick Manella.
What up? What up?
I've got my other co-host up in Wisco, Mr. Mac Vogel.
What's good, y'all?
It's been a hot minute since I've been on the show. Missed last week. We've been juggling some travel schedules, but we've got a jam-packed episode for you in today's discussions. We've got JT Miller drama. We've got some McDavid suspension drama that has taken the internet by storm.
Beat me up, baby.
Reports are coming out that the Penguins are doing a fire sale. I've definitely got some comments on that one. And then, per usual, a little Washington Capitals chatter later in the episode from the two Caps fans on here. So let's start off the Epi with the biggest headline that seems to have everybody's attention. Connor McDavid suspended for 3 games after cross-checking Connor Garland in the face. I know a lot of people have probably seen the clip. The two were tangled up for quite a long time. Kind of looked like some sumo wrestling going on there on the ice, and then the wires crossed and McDavid threw a nice little aggressive cross-check to the face of Garland. So before we get into all the details of the suspension, I want to hear your guys' immediate reaction.
I want to go second.
Okay. I was surprised he got 3. I was just surprised the NHL gave out 3. With the amount of nonsense that was sort of going on at the end of that game, I mean, McDavid and Garland were basically, it almost reminded you of like the first 5 yards of like a receiver and a DB. Like they were just hand fighting, and then it turned into Greco-Roman wrestling, and then it kind of turned into WWE a little bit, and then there was a little bit of CCM to the back of the gums by Connor there. But I don't, I'm fine with 3. I got to be honest. I'm totally fine with it. And, I know everyone was saying, oh, superstar should get superstar treatment and this should have been 1 game or nothing at all. But another thing I think is interesting is when you factor in the Mojo thing that wasn't given a suspension for almost, what was that, like a week ago now, give or take. I know it shouldn't. I still feel like that somehow was a factor in their decision.
Interesting. Yeah, I mostly agree with what you said. I think there's a lot of confusion about this online right now because I'm seeing a lot of different takes, and some of them it's very clear to me that the people that are giving these takes don't even fully understand what they're saying. And so, like, for example, I saw one today that was like it was someone criticizing like the Oilers for being like, oh, they think he shouldn't get suspended because he's good or something like that. It's like they're not saying he shouldn't get suspended because he's good. They're saying he shouldn't have to cross-check somebody because he's really good and you should have called a penalty on the guy that was antagonizing him originally. So like there's a lot of confusion with that kind of stuff going on. However, my overall take on it, and the main point that I was excited to really chat about was I'm of the camp that I don't believe that McDavid should get special treatment just because he's good. However, I do agree that what Garland did was a penalty. Initially, I almost thought they both were kind of holding each other. Watched it back. It looks a little more like maybe Garland's actually wrapped his legs around him, kind of holding him down, and then gets on top of him. Real sensual move there, by the way. Like real sexy with it.
It's missing
Um,
the rose petals there, boys.
yeah, no, exactly. But all in all, I'm totally fine with the suspension, and I'm kind of happy to see it, honestly. Especially, I was watching that game live where he chicken winged Marcus Johansson, Capitals legend that is, and I am glad to see the league treat him the same that they would treat anyone else that cross checks somebody in the face. I think the suspension was deserved, and that's that.
Mac, well said. A lot of different angles. I like how you brought up that people were saying he shouldn't even have to do this when we're not really debating that, although I do agree. I do think it's worth mentioning because apparently in the 21st century you have to issue a statement over everything. The Oilers released an official statement, quote, "The Oilers organization is disappointed and we share in our fans' frustration over the 3-game suspension of Captain Connor McDavid. We support him through this process, and the organization and our fans look forward to having him back in the lineup versus Seattle next week." Going through this process, is he going through rehab? Like,
It's a
what are we
Yeah.
doing
week.
here?
It's a
So
week of him like just not playing games, but he's still like he's allowed to practice, he's allowed to skate. You just don't get to see him for 60 minutes
Yeah,
on
no. So this
Tuesday
really pissed
night.
me off. Like what I read this as was like the Oilers trying to like put pressure on the league to be like, don't suspend him again, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like that's total fucking bullshit to me. Like I just think it's garbage that I also didn't like what I forget if it was Drysdale or someone else on the Oilers said something like, well, the NBA protects LeBron and the NFL protects Mahomes. Like enough with this fucking shit. We don't want to be the NBA. We are the NHL and we don't want some kind of fucking like halo around, at least I don't want like a halo around one dude. I want a bunch of dudes out there playing the same fucking sport, and I want them all answering to the same bell.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the fastest way to discredit a professional sports league is when stuff isn't called across the board. I mean, you
100%.
nailed it. You made a great point with the LeBron James thing. It's like how many different videos out there, are there out there of LeBron blatantly traveling on an inbound pass in front of an official, 3, 4, 5 steps, and it just doesn't get called.
Yep.
I know that's basketball, completely different sport, completely different game, but I think you got to call the game.
There's so many things going through my head. I agree, Mac. Maybe don't put a halo around a guy, although I do personally believe refs can ref guys a little differently. I know you and I were going a little back and forth on that in
Right.
our group chat.
hmm
Um, Let me ask you guys this. How many games do you think it should have been? Or do you think this is right?
I think anything more than three, I would have said would have been a little bit excessive. One, two, or
hmm
three, I would have been like, yeah, that's fine.
I agree. I would have been
Because
perfectly fine with one, two, or three.
I think we've in the past 5 years or so, we've definitely seen suspensions that should have been a game and were more. We've also seen suspensions that should have been 10 and ended up being two. So
Yeah.
I think they got this one in the range at least.
I
So
agree.
I completely agree, and it's wild to me this is three. I think it probably should and could have been one. I know a lot of people have brought up maybe comparable or comparable suspensions. Penn's bias. And I looked up the year. I think of 2019, Evgeny Malkin literally took his stick full swing at Michael Raffles' head and got
Forgot
one
about that
game.
one.
One game for literally taking a baseball bat like to someone's head. And McDavid, I like it kind of makes sense why the wires cross. I don't blame him. I thought maybe a game would have been fine, but
And
yeah.
what year was that? You said that Malkin got one?
2019. I'm watching it right now
Okay.
on my monitor.
Yeah,
I
I do think in the last 5 years, they're trying to crack down way more on specifically cross checks and also specifically anything involving the head or face. And
Absolutely.
so I think that in 2019, maybe this is one, or maybe it's even a fine in 2019.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the
I do.
bigger issue overall here is where in the hell is like his teammate so he doesn't have to
Yeah.
do this? Like that's
Yeah,
the
right.
biggest
Yeah.
problem if you're the Oilers. It's like you want to put out a statement saying we support Connor McDavid through this process. Maybe like I don't know, bring someone in there who can protect the guy. Not saying he can't do that himself, but you also don't want, now you're without your superstar best player on the planet for 3 games. I don't really think that's a recipe for success for the Oilers.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, where the hell is Corey Perry in that situation? But he's probably just not on the ice in that situation.
Correct.
So it's like,
It
you know,
happened with like 3 seconds left in the game. I
and
think.
that's
Right.
the part we haven't really discussed yet is that like everyone's mad. Everyone kept saying, I have no problem with what McDavid did because, he's thinking about is trying to tie the game, and Garland is like stopping the like best player on the ice, best player in the world from like being able to score a goal. And so, it's McDavid getting up and being like, fuck you, I could have just tied this game,
Mhm.
whatever. But I don't know.
Think it's worth noting. I was just curious because we're talking about protecting the Stars' golden halo. I can 100% admit, as the biggest Sidney Crosby, like dick rider in the world, that there's probably a case that he should have been suspended, especially in his earlier years, for some cheap shit that he used to do as a youngster. He's never been suspended.
That
Never.
doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean,
I just
I
looked that
think
up.
too, like you said, when he was younger, every young player is more susceptible to being a hothead and
And we saw
uh
that with Ovi. How many he went
oh
through
yeah.
like 2 or 3 years where he would accidentally hit guys from behind, which now would be a 5 game suspension, but back then was one or
Yeah.
two.
And he's had a couple sussies. I know a few have been for like skipping the All-Star game and stuff, but I think
Right.
he's had one or two for like actual like
Yeah,
disciplinary like hits and stuff like that. I mean, fucking Nick Backstrom got suspended
that's
in the
right.
playoffs. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone should be immune to it. That's my point.
The last thing I'll point out on this topic, and then we'll move on, is this was obviously I listened to Spit and Chicklets this morning. Paul Bissonnette made a great point. With a 3 game suspension, these two teams do play again on Thursday night of this week. Would have been really cool to see the fireworks go with McDavid in.
Yeah,
I
that
still
is a
think the
little unfortunate.
fireworks are going to go
Oh, they'll
off, but
still go for sure. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not sure it actually would make that much of a difference how much fireworks would go off in that game, whether McDavid's playing or not, because I don't think he'd be involved in them. But
Hmm.
I I mean they obviously
But
won't
Tyler
have him.
Myers would be involved.
Yes, that's true. He definitely would be, and he got three as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, and no one really I didn't even notice that play until like I saw a different
Right.
replay, I think today, because it's off in the corner. It's like away from what's happening. He cross-checked somebody too.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
crazy when you don't notice the guy who's 6'7", not on skates over in the corner, but
What can we say one last thing on this
Of
and then
course.
seriously we'll move on. Somebody was talking about, if you're McDavid, drop the fucking gloves. Don't cheap shot him. Don't cross check him. If you really want to, if you're really that pissed, drop the gloves and you're not going to get suspended.
you're
Beat
going
the
to be a
shit out of them.
hero.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're going to be
And
posted on the
and
NHL Instagram every
I don't
day.
necessarily disagree with that either. I mean, I know he's not really a fighter. I know like in this league, guys of his caliber talent don't tend to be fighters. Um, but I mean, we've seen Ovi do it in his more veteran years when he's had enough with somebody. I do think that like just because you're a superstar doesn't mean you should be like, well, I'm never fighting. I don't know if, maybe the coach would have gotten pissed or whatever, but to me, if you're McDavid and you're that pissed, I would much rather see you drop the gloves and take a cheap shot and use your fucking lumber to hit somebody in the gums or whatever.
I totally agree. It would be cool to see him do something like that. I think we've seen guys that are, like you said, we've seen Ovi do it. Sid has done it once or twice, if I'm not
Sid's
mistaken
got a
here.
couple. He's got a couple tilts. McKinnon's definitely had some wires crossed.
He's had,
Right.
well, yeah, he wakes up with the wires crossed, but I think something that they're a little bit more cognizant of now is with these superstars and the fact that everyone's wearing a visor is you don't just want your superstar punching visors. And you don't want them just punching a helmet because then that hand's going to get shredded. If they break something, there's 4 to 6 weeks to heal that. It's just, and especially now, you just really don't want to do that.
Yeah. Why's health got to ruin everything? Right. I know. Stupid. Well, speaking of fireworks, the fireworks that never seem to be put out, JT Miller, the trade rumors are flying like crazy, and it hasn't stopped for like the last month. So the rumors about JT to the Rangers came out. Allegedly, the Canucks denied a trade from the Rangers, which included Hedel, Lindgren, and a pick. Maybe the pick got leaked. I just saw a pick. I don't know if it was a first
Thought
rounder.
I saw it was a first rounder.
First rounder.
It
I'm pretty
was.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. And
But
then there was
I think the main reason that got denied, at least from what I read, is that they couldn't agree on how the first round pick would be like protected. Like there's always something like it becomes a second if you win the cup or something like that,
Right.
you know, stuff like that. And it was yeah, it was like a technicality that they couldn't agree on that ended up throwing the whole trade out the window.
I can't believe that's the part because I would never make that trade, but we'll talk about that in a second. And now Canucks management is rumored to have spent all of Monday in meetings trying to move JT Miller. He it's been said that he wants to go to a East Coast US based team. I think it's worth noting Miller has a full no move clause, $8 million cap hit until the 2030 season.
Yeah, that East Coast thing is going to be a no from me, dog. Sorry. We did that once when you were on the Rangers, and yeah, still hate you.
Fuck it, send him to CBJ. He was born in Ohio, I'm pretty sure.
I
He's
would
a
be fine with that.
Pittsburgh native, yeah. Close enough. I was gonna say, what are some teams that could use a JT Miller type player? I think we've already talked about a
The
couple in the group
Canucks.
chat.
The
Well, yeah,
Canucks
Kings.
need him.
every team.
Yeah.
Um,
The Kings.
I think the Hurricanes are one that come to mind
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
scary. I really don't want the Canes or the Devils. That's what scares me the
Correct.
most. I'd be okay with CBJ personally. It's not great, but it wouldn't bother me nearly as much as the other two. Um,
You know who
I
would
I've
have some
heard the
fire?
Islanders thrown around, and that'd be fine with me
Ugh.
because we all know that if he gets traded to the Islanders, he's only allowed to pass. He's not allowed to shoot anymore. So,
And he has to
Yes.
shave every day.
right.
Who the fuck would want to like empty arenas? The players are even saying it. Why would you want to go
Yeah.
there? And Lou
Yeah,
Lamoriello, I don't know.
terrible.
Um, You know what would make fireworks, in my opinion, would be him. I don't want this from a Pens fan perspective, but as a hockey fan, Torts and JT on the same side, put him in Philly. That dude would
Oh God.
they'd love him.
They would love him in
They'd
They
Philly.
love him.
would. Yeah, and I talk about a team that needs like a fucking it factor. I mean, I know Mitchkov's good. I know like
Yeah.
they've got some good players, but I mean this they need a name like
Yeah.
that.
Like a bona fide centerman, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not Travis Konechny.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you think?
So when you say like, what are good destinations, I think automatically you have to factor in Carolina and then you have to factor in Vegas because we know those two will buy no matter what. They don't
Yeah, they're
care.
always in on it.
Everyone on their rosters currently, with the exception of probably three guys across those two teams, is expendable to them. They can move them whenever they want. And for some weird reason, I just have a feeling that the Boston Bruins are going to
I
just be like
know. I keep
waiting,
thinking that
just like
too.
waiting in the shadows. And when one deal falls through, they'll be like, "Oh, you wanted that second round pick? We'll give you a second and a third."
See, I think it'd be way more interesting. I don't expect either of these teams to make a move on this, but I would find it way more interesting if one of these like bubble teams that's like surprisingly kind of in the playoff race right now. I'm thinking Montreal, I'm thinking CBJ, somebody like that. If they made a move for that, I think that'd be so interesting to see him join a team that we're all kind of like, yeah, they're only a couple points out of the playoff race, but that's not going to last, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you get a JT Miller and you're like, oh shit, they are not fucking around.
Yeah, I mean, what about something like Mini? Mini's got a ton of prospects that they could send the other way. They've got a ton of
Yeah.
defensive prospects. It's sort of like what Anaheim was doing with the Drysdale trade. They're like, we've got 9 defensemen coming up. We don't need this one. Let's
Yeah.
flip it
Yeah.
and get something out of it.
I
And
actually
they're
would,
they're gearing up to make a push. So
I would love that for Minnesota. I think that that would be a real, like, I know that they've, they've surprised some people with the season they've had, but I know a few Wild fans who literally just told me like the other day that, oh yeah, we're having a good year, but it's going to be the same shit in the playoffs. Like I know a lot of that fan base has no confidence in that team to actually win a playoff series this year. But again, you get a guy like that, a game breaking dude. Um, I don't know. They've had injury trouble too. That wouldn't be the worst idea to pad your team with a little more offensive upside.
Right.
I love that. I think he'd be a great fit in Minnesota.
Your top six like includes Erickson Ek, JT Miller, Matt
Hmm.
Boldy, Kaprizov, Zuccarello.
Yeah. I know he said he'd prefer an East Coast team or whatever, but
That's close enough.
fuck it. It's a state of hockey and it's a good
Right.
team. I don't think he'd be pissed off going there.
I wonder about another team that he used to play for,
The Rangers.
Tampa.
Yeah.
Ooh,
That would be not good for the rest of the league. I don't
Yeah.
know what that would take, but like if you're Tampa, what do you wait? Like, there's no need. I hate to say this, but like, you don't need Isaac Howard. I mean, I know he's sick and he's
right.
good, but your time to win is now. You got the goalie, you've got the
Yeah.
star forwards in their prime.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah, it's
like?
kind of true.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah. They don't need Isaac Howard. The Caps do. Make that happen now, please.
So we can move on from JT. We're going to talk a little bit of Penn's fire sale, but I do want to talk about the Caps real quick. I know that in our guideline they're a little later on, but I've been listening to multiple different podcasts just with the trade deadline coming up and Four Nations right before it and stuff. I'm thinking of trade targets for the Caps, right? I feel like the Caps are not getting the respect that they deserve. They're first in the NHL in points, right? Or second, top three. And
Correct.
they by far have like the longest odds out of all the top 10 teams. I think they're like plus 2,100. I think there is a splash in their future, and I think you guys would agree the Caps might need to make a move if they really want to make a run.
The biggest problem with the Caps this year, if you were to have to pick one, would be like our third line, our depth offense kind of situation. And we've tried a lot of different things between Vrana, Mangiapane, Eller. No one has been horrible, but no one's been super consistent either. And I think that's the main focus area if they were to add someone. And so, unsurprisingly, like two of the names that I've heard thrown out that the Caps may or may not be targeting are guys like Yanni Gord and like Brock Nelson, people like that. It's not the flashiest trade, but it's somebody that, has been old, reliable in the NHL for the last decade or so. And I don't know. I mean, I think I wouldn't be upset with either of those additions or a guy like that. But I don't know what it would cost and if it'd be worth it or not. Obviously, that's what it always comes down to.
That's the big one for me is it's all about the return. I think you make a great point. They've tried a couple different things with the third line and with 3C. Loppy's been up and down. Carberry gave him a handful of games at center. They moved him to wing, but it seems like they really want him to play center, which is why he's back down in Hershey. I do agree with you. I think that's the area where if you're going to make a move, you make it there, probably 3C. You can move Eller to wing. He's good enough in the postseason where he's able to do that. I don't really know, between Nelson or Gord if I would, have either of those as my front runners right now, but I can totally see those making sense.
I think Gord, like, I mean, that's a dude who's obviously knows how to win, knows how to turn it on when the lights
Great.
are on. But I know he's had some injury issues as well. I was kind of having some back and forth on Twitter with Noah Hockey Stick, and he was saying, I don't hate a move like that, but I'm not overpaying for an injury prone 33-year-old or whatever he is. Um, and I agree with that. And I think as far as Brock Nelson goes, it's like I think we said it on an episode months ago that I would not be surprised because I know a lot of teams have been shopping him. I think there's a high possibility he gets moved if the Islanders don't figure something out, which I don't really think they're going to. Um, how much you want to bet he gets moved somewhere and we all realize he's actually like kind of a goal scorer and he just has
He's
played
just
for
like
the
a 40
Islanders
goal
this whole
guy.
time. Yeah, like I actually think that he probably has more offensive upside than anyone realizes, but he plays for the fucking Islanders and they just don't score goals.
He's put up 30 and I think he's actually hit 35 before in his career, but yeah, I get what you're saying. He'd be a big fish. One name that would be, if I was a Caps fan, I'd be all over this. Someone can fact check me on this, but I think it's a 1 year deal, so there's not really a whole ton of risk. Taylor Hall. I think that would be a hell of a move. Third line winger,
Yeah,
That'd be kind
definitely,
of crazy.
doesn't have a
definitely some
cup, be
injury
hungry.
issues there.
Yeah,
Injury
true.
issues, but like I said, I think his contract's up at the end of the season, so like you're not stuck with that. But
Right.
that's a
Yeah,
guy who's hungry for a cup. He's a
true.
veteran. I don't know. I could see that
It's a
being a
good one.
great
Yeah,
fit in DC. He can skate
sure.
like the wind still.
True.
I don't know. Is there a specific player other than Gord or Nelson that you guys are like, man, if the Caps could make that work, I'm in.
McKinnon.
Yeah, well,
Shut up.
yeah. I trust me, I get it. I get it. I don't know. Is there one?
Um,
Um, I mean, not really. Nothing like realistic that
yeah,
I is it. Do you have one that you think would make sense?
Dylan Cousins.
Well, that's gonna be a big price tag. Yeah. Like if I'm the what are the Caps like third center? Is that what you would say they mostly need?
Yeah,
Or wing, really. Somebody to
yeah.
play on the third line that's either gonna play wing and make Eller more productive as a center, or play center and we do whatever with Eller.
Hmm. I have to
But
think about that.
somebody to add consistent offensive upside to our third line, basically.
Yeah, definitely.
Could
Hmm.
be a wing or a center.
I need to think a little more on that. I've got a couple guys that I'm about to talk about for my
I mean,
team, but I
if the
don't see
Rangers
that.
are shopping guys like Hedel or Lafreniere, I know that'd be huge price. That's why I said it's not realistic because I mean the Rangers aren't going to trade fucking Alexi Lafreniere to the Capitals. They're just not
Right.
going to do that. So,
Also
but
just signed him, which would be pretty
right.
funny if they
But hey,
traded
I've
him.
heard his name buzzing around there. I'm just saying.
I know he's been playing like shit ever since that extension. We're gonna come back to the Capitals. Not so much trade deadline targets, but recent play, upcoming schedule, all that good jazz. We're gonna take a second to talk about the Penguins because there's been a lot of smoke around that organization and what Kyle Dubas is doing. It's been rumored that everyone's for sale besides Crosby and Malkin. I've even heard that Letang's name is not completely off the table, which would be very surprising to me. Um, things haven't gone as planned. Jari got sent down to the AHL. This team has been really bad in the month of January. And then just when you think like everything's coming to a crashing, burning disaster, they're still kind of in that wild card spot. And then last night, Monday, Raquel is out of the lineup for personal reasons, leading the team in goals. They go into LA. They're on a West Coast swing right now. They've got the LA Fire Department hats out for warm-ups. I'm like, we are going to lose by 5 goals. And what do? They win 5-1. And I woke up and I checked the score app. I was like, how on God's earth did this happen? And it's one of those things where like this team just won't tank it all the way. They give you just enough hope, and it's a frustrating job for Dubas, I can imagine. But
I'll tell
yeah,
you what, I
there's
was watching a little bit of that game and it was 3-0 and then it was I believe or no, maybe it was
I
final
don't
score
know.
was 5-1, you said?
I was in REM cycle by the time the
It
first
so
period
it
was
must have
over.
been it was 2-0 and then it was 2-1. It really seemed like the Kings were buzzing and out of nowhere they just scored Penguins again, like a garbage goal at the end of the period, and from there it was over. But I was equally dumbfounded. I was like, why are they winning this game?
I look at Patterson. That's a guy who's on defense where, you know, teams need depth defensemen going into the playoffs. Think he's going to be probably the first one to go. I'd be shocked if Rust goes, although I've heard his name is in there too. We'll see what Bunting has to offer. Just got him last year in that trade with Gensel. What do you guys think? Like, you think the Pens should just completely fire sale it?
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I here's the thing. Everyone's been criticizing Dubas, and you and some other more diehard Penguins fans have been kind of defending him, saying, it's more Hextall that left him with this pile of shit to work with. And it's like, I don't disagree with you, but if that's the case, I would like to see Dubas put his cards on the table here and prove he's a good GM and go out and get out of some of these issues. Like ship off some of these dudes and do the rebuild or do the retool or whatever he wants to do. But I still don't think maybe he's blameless right now, but if he doesn't get something out of some of these dudes soon, then I think you start to be able to blame him and be like, all right, dude, well, yeah, you were handed a pile of shit, but you're not doing anything with it.
I think that's a great point. I think you can start to have that point of view now, and I wouldn't really fault you for it. I mean, his big move was Eric Carlson,
Hasn't worked
and
out. Hasn't worked out as
there's not really anything else that he's done, you know. And I know that that's me not
He
being in an
signed
NH.
Jari too, didn't he?
he did
Correct.
sign. He
Yeah.
signed Jari before he like signed the deal with the Pens to be the GM, and then the first thing he did was sign Jari because he needed a goalie, and
Yeah.
Jari was up. I get it. Like,
I
not a
you,
good move.
I would start with the defenseman. Like if I
Carlson
was,
Pedersen.
yeah, and Letang too. I know you don't want to hear that, but like I'm Ty Pennington, move that defenseman. Like just move him,
Yeah,
dude. Like
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you're probably going to get more from a return from him than you're going to get out of the rest of his career being a Penguin.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah, no, I'm
I
slowly
do think right now you could still get a pretty good. Somebody would overpay for Chris Letang right now.
100%.
I'm slowly
And they
becoming
wear blue and
more
orange.
I'm slowly becoming more okay the worse that we get where I'm like, you know what? This was fun, but
Yeah.
like let's move on. Like I want the youngsters, I want some youth, I want some energy.
Oh,
I
it'll
look
be hard, but like, I mean,
yeah.
when we traded Orlov, I was like, this is actually like one of the hardest trades I've ever had to deal with as a fan. Like that one really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And like not even a year later, I was like, oh, I get it. I was like, I see the vision. That was really
Yeah.
fucking smart.
Yeah. I do kind of understand that. So, trying to think of a team who could take Raquel like I don't know, who's a play like Winnipeg, I think would be a
It's
great
a good
one.
one.
That right? Like they're gonna make a cup push.
And I think Nick is dead on with a team that could use somebody like a Letang, freaking Oilers.
Yep.
Like that would be
Montreal would make a lot of
There
sense.
sure,
you go.
sure.
Consider he's from there, but like I think about Raquel, like he could get us a bigger haul than Gensel did because he's got term on his contract
True.
and he's having a career year. Like, could we get Brandon Yeager back from Winnipeg after we just traded him for McGroarty? Like, get it back for Raquel? I don't know. Like, let's we could have Team Canada and Team USA's captains for back-to-back World Juniors. I
There you
don't know.
go.
But like we need some youth to come in. The Tomasino move's been good. I love the Cody Glass signing. More of that kind of stuff. Like if those guys can
Glass
hit their
had a goal
ceiling.
last night, I think.
Yeah, he's been great for us this year. Brian Russ would also get an absolute haul, but like I don't know what Sid will tolerate because you can't just look at him and say, okay, fuck it. We're
Yeah.
not even giving you a
That
chance.
is the hard part of the puzzle, especially, we were talking about that Caps article from Wyshynski that we read today, where they're talking about the promise Ovi made and the promise Ted made. And
Yeah.
it makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes with Crosby. It's like, he probably expects a certain thing. And I know that they've changed GMs in the last couple of years, but with ownership, I would imagine he's had some conversations.
Yeah, I think, you probably, if you're Dubas, get to a point where you're like, look, Sid, I can do Penguins last ride with the trio, or I can do attempt to retool and get you another cup, but I can't do both. So you got to pick which way we want to go here.
I
And
gotta
and
oh, you
go
go.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I gotta imagine when he signed the extension, these conversations happen. I just don't know like what to
I
do.
I do think though, like Wit from Chicklets kind of nailed it today with what he said. Like it's not the same situation as Ovi, where we know Ovi's got the rest of this year and he's got one more year, and we're pretty certain that's it. Like we're
Yeah.
pretty sure he's retiring after that. Crosby has showed no reason why he can't be like closer to like a Gordie Howe type. I don't see any reason, at least right now, that he couldn't play 5 more years or something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think maybe if he were willing to say this year is a wash and maybe next year is going to also not be ideal, maybe we sneak in, but we might be kind of bad next year or something like that. I think that is probably the Pens' best bet is to try to get him to agree to kind of say this year's a wash. Next year, don't get your hopes up. And after that, let's try and get you one more if you're willing to stick around for, maybe a year or two after that. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad thought. It's going to be a wild ride to the finish. Last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to the Capitals. This team, if it had average goaltending through the first 2 to 3 months of the season, would not look as bad as it does now. But unfortunately, we are in a hole where it's going to be tough to dig out, and we don't have a goalie. So that's all I got to say.
It's doable. I'll be the first one to say, like, this team isn't dead. I don't, no team with Sidney Crosby is ever going to be dead, in my opinion. But, like, yeah, you got to make a decision here soon if you're committing to trying to get into the postseason or if you're actually going to try and get something of value from guys you have in your roster right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, we're going to move on to the Washington Capitals. Nick, the floor is yours.
All right, let's recap some of the recent games. So, Logan Thompson, unbelievable, yet not good enough for Team Canada at the Four Nations. Just remember that. This guy had back-to-back shutouts, a 3-zip whitewashing of the Ducks, and then just a great goalie duel up in Ottawa with the Caps win 1-zip. Going back to the Ducks game real quick, I thought this was a good, bounce back win. I know Carbs had talked about them being flat and getting out of a slump. I don't really know how you can say that the first place team in the NHL is in a slump, but I think that team would agree that, the offense kind of went stale a little bit. They were playing a little bit too many overtime games, but Ethan Frank scores in that game. Love seeing Brandon Duhaime get a goal in the first period. John Carlson with an absolute bomb of a slap shot in that Ducks game. Go into Ottawa, 1-0 win. Who gets the overtime game winner? Who else but Alex Ovechkin? An unreal pass by Sandin and Ovi shooting in stride. That was not an easy puck to get up and get past the goaltender. So, I mean, he's just, continuing to make our jaws hit the floor every single day. He now sits one game winning goal behind tying the record for most all time. Do you guys know who has the most all time game winning goals?
JJ.
Correct.
Yeah, Yager. That's what I was gonna say. Sorry, it took a
Yes.
second. I thought JJ Redick right off the top of my head. I was like, wrong, wrong sport.
Paterka,
Nah.
actually. Yes, the
Right.
NHL
Yeah.
record.
Yeah.
Thank you. My apologies.
Let's go over to the game I know everyone wants to talk about. Caps Pens 4-1. Chikrin, Protas, and PLD score. Duhaime gets the empty net. Great game. Boys looked great. Ted, what are you doing? Make them full time. Come on, those black uniforms are too sweet. But yeah, it has been a good, I would say, week of games for the Washington Capitals.
That PLD goal in the Penguins game, whew, putting the puck in a teacup. That
Yep.
is, I wish he would shoot the puck a little more. He's kind of like Backstrom in that way, where it's like, he's got a wicked shot, but he's always going to look to pass first.
Exactly. He's been fantastic. He has 8 points in 9 games in January. He is well on his way to matching or exceeding his career high.
What a fucking like, what's the word? How lucky. Not like I mean it's not luck. He's got the organization clearly saw something. They said, "Oh, like Twitter says this guy is really bad and his contract sucks, but we're real life GMs and not Twitter GMs." And they make a good move and Carberry knows how to handle him and he looks motivated, which is more than you can say in the previous parts of his career. What a signing. I mean, he's looked great.
I mentioned it earlier. I implore you all to go look up Greg Wyshynski's article about the Capitals and why they're successful right now and why their offseason moves have worked because it fully explains what they saw in PLD and why they made that move and why they knew kind of all along that the quote unquote problems surrounding him were more of a bad fit and not a player problem.
Yeah, it's a really good piece by Greg. I just, this team has been playing some really, really good hockey. I know Charlie Lindgren has been banged up, but for what they're paying Logan Thompson, I mean, the level of production is just out of this world. He's 21, 2, and 3 on the season. He's won 6 out of 7 in January, and he's got a 944 save percentage in the year of 2025 so far.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors too that they so both goalies, Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson, both in the final year of their contracts right now.
Yes.
But there's rumors that the team does not want to sign one and upset the locker room. So that's going to be an interesting thing to kind of follow. I've seen I've seen some people, some Caps fans, and others on Twitter kind of trying to project what we may do with our UFAs this offseason, who we may let go, who we may re-sign. And I saw somebody today tweet, something that we would re-sign Thompson for, and then also something that we would sign Lindgren for. And a lot of people were commenting the cold hard truth, and it was like, listen, we ain't signing Thompson for 6 and Lindgren for 3. We're going to sign Thompson for 6 or 7 and then go sign some veteran for 1 year and hope that Stevenson or, one of our prospects can come up and figure it out.
Jari.
Shepherd.
No, right. But so yeah, that's going to be an interesting situation to follow, but it does seem like it's probably Thompson that's going to get the big deal.
Was he a free agent signing that wasn't a trade, right? Thompson?
That was a signing, if I'm not mistaken.
I actually can't remember.
Is that not the signing of the year? I think
because they swapped goalies. Like they got Samsonov and we got Thompson, but it wasn't like it wasn't a trade for anything. And obviously Sammy had been in Toronto before that.
Right.
Is that not the signing of the year? What's he making? I don't even know.
He's making less than Shepherd is in Hershey.
And he's got, I think I saw.
I think he's making league minimum. I'm pretty sure he's literally on league minimum.
That's insane. I think I saw on Twitter the Capitals have earned like 56 out of a possible 62 points in like all of his starts. Don't take that stat as it was something crazy like that. His record's insane.
It's not far off from that. I saw that too.
His record's insane.
It's definitely it's a problem that they're going to face in the offseason. It's definitely one of those ones you say is a good problem to have. But, when you factor in Chychrun, when you factor in Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
You can't keep them all and keep Alex Ovechkin, John Carlson, Tom Wilson, and then
Cap's going up though by a pretty substantial amount.
It is. That's true. That's a great point.
Helps. That helps, but still, I don't think you're going to pay your backup goalie $3 or $4 million.
Probably not.
Upcoming games. Did you already touch on that? I'm sorry.
I did not, but they are out on their West Coast swing. They will be in Edmonton tonight, yesterday when you guys are listening to this, Thursday in Seattle, Saturday in Vancouver, and then next Tuesday in Calgary.
Nice little slate of games.
I love the Western trip. I know we still haven't done like our LA, San Jose, Anaheim one. That'll come later, but I love when we get some late Caps games, especially when they're just like during the week and I can kind of get in bed and fall asleep to those games. Always something I look forward to.
Yeah, and we usually gravitate towards our team around the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock range. So it opens up, hey, maybe I'm going to watch the Devils tonight, or hey, I'm going to watch, the Panthers or something like that, just to shuffle the deck a little bit.
Yeah, it is nice.
Well, we're going to wrap up the episode with a little trivia. But before we do, this trivia question is brought to you by Prop Tracker, your one-stop shop for all things betting, player props, NFL playoffs, receptions, touchdowns, rushing yards, you name it, it's got it. For hockey, points, assists, shots on goal, it's got everything. So go download Prop Tracker app. It'll notify you when your bet hits on your home screen, so you don't have to keep checking your DraftKings account. Use the link in our bio to get your first month free on us. Trivia, who's got it?
I've got it. And there were 3 really interesting facts that I thought all of them were good ones. I'll go with this, and if you get it like right away, I'll pivot to one of the others. But let's start with this. This player played in his second game with his new team on January 21st, 1995, after being traded during the previous offseason. He scored his first goal with the new team in a 3-2 loss to the visiting Sharks, and he eventually became this team's leading goal scorer with 420 goals over the next 13 seasons. I think that has since been passed, but
so a big free agent signing going into the 1995 big trade going into the 1995 season.
Mm-hmm.
And in his first game with the team, he scored 2 goals against the Sharks.
Second game for the team.
Okay.
Can I throw a total shot in the dark out?
Sure.
Is this Keith Kachuk?
No.
Okay.
Is this like household?
Yes, extremely.
Ah, extremely. Okay.
Like definitely on the level of like a Keith Kachuk, or I mean, he's probably a better player than that, but as
Ooh.
much of a household name.
Hmm.
And when I say better player, I mean more of a goal scorer, but
Ronick?
no,
Hall?
Okay. uh,
Brett Hall?
nope.
So if they played the Sharks, odds probability would indicate it's a Western Conference team.
95. So traded in the 90, like in that off season of 1995.
Um, so here I'll read part of it again. The player played in his second game for this team on January 21st, 1995, after being acquired from the other team during the
Uh,
previous offseason. So I don't know if he had an injury and didn't play his
Okay.
second game until January, or was there a lockout that year? I don't think
There
so.
was one in the 90s. I don't remember what year it was though.
94 or 5.
Probably.
maybe.
Maybe, but either way, whatever. He got traded during the summer of 94, it seems like, and then played in his second game, January 95, with his new team. And actually, I think I was wrong about I think he is still the all-time leading goal scorer for this
Team.
franchise, but that won't last long for sure.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh. All right. Can you tell me if it's a Western team? I'm predicting it's a Western team.
It is not.
Okay, so let's not go down that rabbit hole. So it's an Eastern team. An Eastern team currently holds the record, but it won't be held on for long. Hmm.
So it's not the Canes because they were the Whalers.
It's not the Lightning.
It's not the Panthers because I don't think they were a thing yet.
So he became this team's all-time leading goal scorer with 420 goals over the next 13 seasons.
It's definitely not the Penguins. Thinking like the Rangers were fresh off a cup, and they don't have anybody where I feel like they're gonna break that goal record soon. What
This
about the
record will almost certainly be broken next season.
I'm thinking Leafs. I'm thinking Leafs. Who got was it Sundin?
Yes, it was.
Nice.
Okay. All
All
right.
right, so to
Yeah.
read the
Good
full
pull,
thing,
Harry.
Matt
Thanks.
Sundin played in his second game for the Maple Leafs on January 21st, 1995, after being acquired from, anybody know?
The- mm, is he a Nordique?
Yep, from the
Yeah.
That's
Quebec
right.
Nordiques during the previous offseason. He scored his first goal with the team in a 3-2 loss to the visiting Sharks, and then he later became Toronto's all-time leading goal scorer with 420 goals over the next 13 seasons.
Didn't he
Wow.
wrap it up in Vancouver?
I believe so,
He
yeah.
did. Yeah. Wow. That's a I would have never guessed that Quebec would trade a guy of that caliber to a Eastern Canadian rival.
Yeah, that is kind of wild.
Good trivia, Mac. All right. Anything else you guys got?
I'm
Think
all
I'm
good.
good. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening and have a good week. We'll talk to you in the next one.